เฮกซ์จีนสั่งให้กองทัพของเขามีความสามารถในการบุกไต้หวันภายในปี 2027 สำรวจความคิดของพี่เฮกซ์เกี่ยวกับความท้าทายด้านความมั่นคงในภูมิภาคอินโดแปซิฟิก
But a threat gathers. As we all know, strength and security underpin peace and enable prosperity. And our common sense approach to achieving security, achieving peace through strength, requires seeing things crystal clearly. It requires confronting obvious truth about the threats that we face in the Indo-Pacific, and it requires meeting those threats with a very real sense of urgency. So before we get to those hard truths, and to make sure to our friends in the press our words are not misconstrued as they so often are, let me begin by saying we do not seek conflict with Communist China. We will not instigate nor seek to subjugate or humiliate. President Trump and the American people have an immense respect for the Chinese people and their civilization. But we will not be pushed out of this critical region. And we will not let our allies and partners be subordinated and intimidated. China seeks to become a hegemonic power in Asia, no doubt. It hopes to dominate and control too many parts of this vibrant and vital region. Through its massive military buildup and growing willingness to use military force to achieve its goals, including gray zone tactics and hybrid warfare, China has demonstrated that it wants to fundamentally alter the region's status quo. We cannot look away, and we cannot ignore it. China's behavior toward its neighbors and the world is a wake-up call, and an urgent one. China uses its vast and sophisticated cyber capabilities to steal technology and attack critical infrastructure in your countries and in the United States as well. These actions not only compromise our countries, but endanger the lives of our citizens. In the South China Sea, China harasses its neighbors, many of which are here in the room today. China seeks to intimidate you in your own waters. We've all seen the videos and pictures of water cannons and ship-to-ship collisions and illegal boardings at sea. We're also seeing the illegal seizing and militarizing of lands in the South China Sea. These actions reveal a lack of respect for neighbors, and they challenge sovereignty, freedom of navigation, and overflight. We are watching very closely China's destabilizing actions. And any unilateral attempt to change the status quo in the South China Sea and the first island chain by force or coercion is unacceptable. Every day, you see it. China's military harasses Taiwan. These activities have been paired with China's rapid military modernization and buildup, including huge investments in nuclear weapons, hypersonics, and amphibious assault capabilities. It has to be clear to all that Beijing is credibly preparing to potentially use military force to alter the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. We know, it's public, that Xi has ordered his military to be capable of invading Taiwan by 2027. The PLA is building the military needed to do it, training for it every day, and rehearsing for the real deal. Admiral Paparo has spoken very clearly about this on multiple occasions. Again, to be clear, any attempt by Communist China to conquer Taiwan by force would result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. The threat China poses is real, and it could be imminent. We hope not, but it certainly could be. Facing these threats, we know that many countries are tempted by the idea of seeking both economic cooperation with China and defense cooperation with the United States. Now, that is a geographic necessity for many. But beware the leverage that the CCP seeks with that entanglement. Economic dependence on China only deepens their malign influence and complicates our defense decision space during times of tension. Nobody knows what China will ultimately do, but they are preparing. And therefore, we must be ready as well. Urgency and vigilance is our only option at the Department of Defense with our allies, because the United States, especially under President Trump, does not seek war. We do not seek to dominate or strangle China, to encircle or provoke. We do not seek regime change, nor will we instigate or disrespect a proud and historic culture. We will be ready, but we will not be reckless. Instead, we seek peace. But we must ensure that China cannot dominate us or our allies and partners. Maintaining the status quo requires strength. That's just a rational, common sense goal that we should all be able to live with. President Trump has also said that Communist China will not invade Taiwan on his watch. So our goal is to prevent war, to make the cost too high, and peace the only option. And we will do this with a strong shield of deterrence forged together with you, America's great allies and defense partners. Together, we will show what it means to execute peace through strength. In many ways, seen and unseen, overt and covert. But if deterrence fails, and if called upon by my Commander-in-Chief, we are prepared to do what the Department of Defense does best, to fight and win decisively. And as I've said many times before, and it's important for this room to hear today and all the world, America first certainly does not mean America alone, especially alongside so many of our allies, model allies like Poland, Israel, and the Gulf states, the Baltic states. And it does not mean ignoring the world. As you have all seen, President Trump is committed to a lasting and durable peace in Ukraine, and with an unwavering commitment to ensure Iran never has nuclear weapons. He seeks a strong and verifiable negotiated deal. The other option is regional war, or worse. As we shift our focus to this region, and as Europe steps up and takes greater ownership for its own security, President Trump and I will be counting on you, on this room, our allies and partners, to be force multipliers for peace alongside the United States. We ask, and indeed we insist, that our allies and partners do their part on defense. Sometimes that means having uncomfortable and tough conversations. Partners owe it to each other to be honest and to be realistic, as many of you have been with me in the past few days, and I with you. This is the essence of a pragmatic, common sense defense policy. But you will also see that we are and will remain loyal to our allies and partners. The military-to-military relationship between many of our countries goes back decades, and in some cases, centuries. In fact, the only way to ensure lasting alliances and partnerships is to make sure that each side does its part and sees the benefit. We will stand with you and work alongside you to deter Chinese aggression. Each day, together, creating more and more dilemmas and complications should China want to act, should they decide to overturn the status quo. More dilemmas, more complications, more questions, more concerns, more variables, more reasons to say it's not worth it. No one should doubt America's commitment to our Indo-Pacific allies and partners. We will continue to wrap our arms around our friends and find new ways to work together, not only our treaty allies here, but also our key defense partners in ASEAN and across the Indo-Pacific. For example, look no further than to our growing defense relationship with India, where we pass new milestones by the day, from shared ventures of our defense industries to the increased operational coordination and interoperability between our two militaries. I urge all of our allies and partners to seize this moment with us. Our defense spending must reflect the dangers and threats that we face today. Because deterrence doesn't come on the cheap. Just ask the American taxpayer. Time is of the essence. We must step up and move out with urgency. And it's hard to believe a little bit, after some trips to Europe, that I'm saying this, but thanks to President Trump, Asian allies should look to countries in Europe as a newfound example. NATO members are pledging to spend 5% of their GDP on defense, even Germany. So it doesn't make sense for countries in Europe to do that while key allies in Asia spend less on defense in the face of an even more formidable threat, not to mention North Korea. Ultimately, a strong, resolute, and capable network of allies and partners is our key strategic advantage. China envies what we have together, and it sees what we can collectively bring to bear on defense. But it's up to all of us to ensure that we live up to that potential by investing. U.S. allies in the Indo-Pacific can and should quickly upgrade their own defenses. President Trump said it himself last month in Riyadh and will never hesitate to wield American power swiftly and decisively if necessary. That is reestablishing deterrence. So we're doing this here in the Indo-Pacific in three distinct ways. And forgive me as I go into a little bit of detail. First, by improving our forward force posture. Second, by helping allies and partners strengthen their defense capabilities. And third, by rebuilding defense industrial bases. So first, the Defense Department is prioritizing forward-postured, combat-credible forces in the Western Pacific to deter by denial along the first and second island chains. In my first trip to the Indo-Pacific in March, I traveled to the Philippines to meet with President Marcos and Secretary of National Defense Teodoro. While there, we announced our commitment to deploy more advanced U.S. military capabilities to the Philippines. We announced the inaugural overseas deployment of Nemesis, a U.S. Marine Corps mobile anti-ship missile system to the Philippines. The 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment, one of the U.S. military's most capable and lethal formations, exercised Nemesis along with our Philippine allies. Together, we deployed the system to the Batanes Islands on the Luzon Strait between the Philippines and Taiwan. This enhanced our interoperability and improved our readiness on cutting-edge platforms, where we need them and when we need them. We also announced that the U.S. Special Operations Forces and Philippine Marines are training together on complex landing scenarios in the Batanes Islands. This demonstrates that our forces can conduct high-end operations in the most challenging of environments. I also had a chance to visit Tokyo and meet with Prime Minister Ishiba and Defense Minister Nakatani. We announced that we're upgrading U.S. Forces Japan headquarters. This is about warfighting and deterrence as well as common sense. Upgrading USFJ demonstrates the significant work of the U.S.-Japan alliance as it evolves to emerging threats. It also reflects the progress the alliance has made toward improving interoperability and strengthening Japan's capabilities. And this summer, the U.S. Army has plans to conduct its first ever live-fire test of its mid-range capability system in Australia. This will be the first time that system is fired west of the international date line. The first time it's been tested on foreign soil. Deployments like this represent a commitment to the region, and there are many more planned. On the home front, the Golden Dome for America will protect the U.S. homeland against a catastrophic missile attack by adversaries. We will strengthen missile defenses for the U.S. homeland as we look for ways to improve regional missile defenses right here in the Indo-Pacific. We're also using regional integrated air and missile defense, and we're deploying several key missile defense technologies and data sharing partnerships with Japan and Australia, leveraging America's best-in-class technologies to strengthen regional air and missile defense architectures. Second, we're supporting allies and partners as they strengthen their own defense capabilities and capacity. We want to empower you as partners, not dependents, to work more capably with the United States. We're working to rapidly deliver the kinds of off-the-shelf, innovative, autonomous systems for which the American defense industry is renowned. It's why the department partnered with U.S. industry to launch the Maritime Security Consortium. This consortium will build and sustain maritime domain awareness to deliver real operational effects by employing unmanned aircrafts and vessels. These capabilities, delivered quickly and at a lower cost, give a cutting-edge advantage to the hands of warfighters and our defense partners in Southeast Asia. A critical part of working with our partners is increasing interoperability, learning how to sail, fly, and fight as one. This year's Balikatan exercise in the Philippines was the largest ever. In the South China Sea, we continue to conduct regular maritime activities alongside Australia, Japan, and the Philippines. We're also expanding our security partnership with India through robust military exercises like Tiger Triumph. And we're also amplifying cooperation within the Quad and other multilateral frameworks. Within the Quad, we're also leading an initiative called the Indo-Pacific Logistics Network, enabling Quad partners to leverage shared logistics capabilities in the Indo-Pacific. You know, they say rookies talk strategy, pros talk logistics. And we're grateful for the opportunity to train with all our allies in the region in other exercises like Talisman Sabre with Australia and Cobra Gold in Thailand. These exercises enhance our lethality while improving our readiness to respond at a moment's notice. And that was certainly put into practice last March with the Thai military in response to the earthquake there. Flying and sailing and operating together in peacetime ensures we are prepared for the unexpected. And third, we are revitalizing our defense industrial bases and reallocating resources toward the most lethal and effective capabilities. We're doing this because success of the warfighters requires it. It's one thing for an adversary to see multinational forces operating together in exercises. It's another thing entirely for that same country to see an integrated defense industrial base supporting those forces and standing ready to keep them in the fight. That's why we are pleased to endorse the Partnership for Indo-Pacific Industrial Resilience, also known as PIPER, a U.S.-initiated multilateral forum of 14 allies and partners working with industry, capital providers, and key non-governmental stakeholders to strengthen industrial resilience, expand our capacity, and accelerate deliveries. So today I'm proud to announce the first PIPER projects. The first project plans to establish repair capability and capacity for P-8 radar systems in Australia. It'll also enable Indo-Pacific allies and partners operating the aircraft, including New Zealand and the Republic of Korea, to repair aircraft within the region, rather than relying on single repair sources in the continental United States. The second is a project that will develop standards for small unmanned aerial systems across the Indo-Pacific, identifying secure sources of production for their critical components and increasing global supply chain resilience for these essential systems. Similarly, we are working through our regional sustainment framework to do things like expand existing contracts for U.S. Army watercraft repair. The goal of this initiative is to bring in more providers and expand existing repair capability more broadly across the Indo-Pacific. We'll also use our allies' world-class ship repair capabilities to enhance the U.S. Navy's operational effectiveness to save taxpayers money. These moves will strengthen regional resiliency by increasing access to repair capabilities in theater and reducing dependency on faraway supply chains. We're deepening our cooperation with Australia's Guided Weapons and Explosive Ordnance Enterprise with historic momentum and purpose. This work secures our technological edge and makes our munitions supply chains resilient. In the last 2 months, we've reached an agreement for Australia to produce 155 millimeter ammunition and to assemble guided multiple launch rocket systems, or GMLRS. These steps enhance our readiness and facilitate upgrades to our collective defense industrial base. And we're working with India to co-produce equipment needed to deter aggression. And this includes negotiating an agreement to bring our industrial bases ever closer. Last month, we held our first ever U.S.-India industry government experts exchange to produce and field state-of-the-art autonomous systems as part of the U.S.-India Autonomous Systems Industry Alliance. So across the board, the United States, our allies, and our partners have made great progress in these and many other areas towards achieving peace through strength, but we have to move quickly, and we have no time to waste.